People in Grimchester whispered that the Undertaker's wife slept with the dead. They said she wandered the cold corridors after midnight, touching frozen lips that could never speak again. Folks laughed nervously when they repeated the rumor. Secretly, they feared it might be true. A fog thicker than morning fell upon Grimchester every night. It curled around the town like a shroud, swallowing lamplight and hope. At the edge of this sleepy village stood a lonely brick building. Half home, half morgue. The scent of formaldehyde and wilted lilies lingered in its bones. It belonged to Mr. Alistair Kane, the undertaker whose eyes looked as if he carried the weight of every coffin he ever built. Living in the rooms above that morgue was Eveline Kane, a woman so pale she made moonlight jealous. Strangers thought she was fragile. Those who saw how she moved through the morgue knew better. She walked gracefully among the dead, almost like one of them. People said the dead admired her beauty. People said many things. Every morning bells tolled. Every evening more bodies arrived. Grimchester did not forgive sickness or scandal, and the graveyard always had room for more. Eveline helped prepare the bodies. She sewed lips shut. She cleaned blood that refused to dry. She closed eyelids over eyes that had seen too much. Her touch was steady, her voice soft, yet Alistair never let her near the newest arrivals until after sunset. He spoke little, but his rules were strict. Sometimes it felt like fear, not protection. One night, under the flicker of a dying lamp, Eveline walked down to the morgue alone. Her husband had gone to bed early. She tiptoed past the shelves of stillness and stopped when she noticed a new coffin in the center of the room. It was different. More elegant, almost cherished. The brass plate read, "Unidentified man found by the river with date October 12, 1893. The coffin was left unlocked. As if waiting, Eveline pressed her hand against the polished wood. A pull stirred inside her chest. A memory, something tender and painful. Her breath hitched. She pushed the lid open with trembling fingers. The man inside looked not dead, but sleeping. His skin was pale as marble, his hair black as raven wings. A scar curved beneath his jaw. The moment her eyes touched that scar, lightning struck her heart. "I know you," she whispered, voice cracking like an old grave marker. Her knees weakened. The lamp trembled in her grasp. That scar belonged to a man she once loved more passionately than life itself. A man Alistair never spoke about. A man she buried within her past. His name formed on her lips like a forbidden prayer. Thomas. Eveline fell forward, fingertips brushing his cheek. Cold, unyielding skin burned like ice. Tears welled as memories flooded. Moonlit promises. A kiss stolen behind a church. Desperation as he left her without a goodbye. She thought he had forgotten her forever. Now he was back. Below the morgue floor, the walls groaned. Something ancient listened. Something hungry. Suddenly, footsteps echoed upstairs. Alistair. He would be furious if he found her here. Eveline covered Thomas again and backed away, heart pounding like funeral drums. She whispered to the air, both vow and confession, "This is not the end for us." The dead man did not move, yet she felt unseen eyes open. Eveline slipped into the shadows just as her husband's lantern glow swept through the doorway. Alistair paused near the coffin. His jaw tightened. He touched the brass plate with a trembling hand. As if terrified someone might read the engraved truth hiding beneath the lie. His voice rasped, barely audible. "You should have stayed buried." What secret bound Eveline to a dead man the Undertaker feared? The morgue is about to reveal much darker truths. Like, share, and subscribe. If you dare to keep descending deeper into the cold mystery below Grimchester, comment next, and I will reveal the night the dead man opens his eyes. No corpse should move after death, yet some loves refuse to stay still. The next morning, dawn arrived timidly, as if afraid to shine on Grimchester's sins. Eveline forced herself to perform her usual chores, but every thought circled back to the body, hidden beneath the polished wood. The man who once promised forever. The man whose lips she thought she might never see again. Thomas. His name echoed inside her like a heartbeat she wasn't supposed to hear. Alistair said little at breakfast. He watched Eveline with eyes that had buried too many hopes. She could feel his suspicion gnawing the edges of silence. "You stayed up late," he finally muttered, slicing into bread as though it had offended him. "I couldn't sleep." Her voice wavered like candlelight. Alistair's knife stopped mid-air. "Stay out of the new cold room." "I will handle that body." His tone wasn't protective. It was warning. Eveline nodded, even though her heart screamed defiance. Later, when church bells tolled, and Alistair stepped out for a burial, her footsteps found their way back to the morgue. The door to Thomas's cold room was locked now. A newer, heavier lock. Fresh scratches scarred the metal. She pressed her ear against the wood. Silence. "Thomas," she whispered. Barely daring to breathe the sound, a sudden scrape shivered through the air. Metal inside, something shifting. Eveline recoiled, her pulse roaring. She forced herself to speak again, trembling. "If you can hear me." "I'm here," a thud answered. Sharp, desperate, impossible. The coffin lid was moving. Eveline staggered backward, one hand clamped over her mouth. Every warning bell inside her mind clanged at once. Yet terror tangled strangely with longing. Love had always been a dangerous disease. Keys jangled at the front door upstairs. Her husband was returning. Eveline dashed behind the shelf of embalming jars, just as Alistair stormed down the stairs. His face was carved from stone, his jaw locked tight. He unlocked the cold room and stepped inside. That same silence returned, smothering everything. Eveline could not see him, only hear the uneasy rhythm of his breathing. Then a sound like something heavy being forced down. Like a fight against death itself, Alistair emerged, pale as a shroud. He locked the door again and leaned against it, chest heaving. His whisper cracked under the weight of dread. "You will not take her from me again." Her Eveline's blood froze. He knew. Minutes dragged like corpses through mud, until at last he went back upstairs. Eveline waited until she heard his footsteps vanish into the house. Curiosity scorched fear into ash. She crept to the cold room door again. Her fingertips traced the dents newly blooming around the coffin's outline. Something inside was begging for release. Eveline's voice trembled as she leaned close. "I'll come back for you tonight." The room exhaled a soft breath. Frost kissed her cheeks. A whisper rose from the sealed dark. Eveline, her name. Spoken by a dead man. Her heart shattered open. She fled the morgue before the truth devoured her sanity. Upstairs, Alistair stared out the window at the cemetery, his fists clenched. He knew Eveline's secrets. What he didn't know was the dead's resolve. Love had crawled back from the grave. Night would soon fall again. Nothing would stay buried then. What awakens a corpse to whisper a lover's name? The next part reveals the forbidden past they tried to bury. If you want unlocked next, like this, share it with anyone who loves dark mysteries. And subscribe for the next chapter of the morgue's secrets. Love that refuses to die. A woman with a heartbeat. A man without one. Some romances survive even the grave, but at a terrible cost. Eveline wandered through her day like a ghost, still chained to flesh. Customers came to the parlor to choose coffins, whispering condolences and gossip in equal measure. She smiled politely, though every smile hid a scream. Inside her ribs, Thomas's whisper still echoed. Eveline, a lover's call turned resurrection spell. Years earlier, their love blossomed in stolen hours. Thomas had been a railway engineer, sturdy arms smeared with grease and dreams. Eveline remembered how he used to laugh with his whole chest, how he danced barefoot in the rain and kissed her until the world disappeared. He promised to marry her. He vanished instead, no letters, no goodbye, nothing but hollow nights and questions that gnawed like rats. Her family forced her into a marriage deemed more respectable. Alistair, the Undertaker, offered quiet stability. A home above the dead, a husband who looked at her as if she were another body to preserve, not a bride to adore. Even now, she wore a wedding ring that felt like a shackle. Alistair closed the door to her past and locked it. Love, he insisted, must remain buried where it cannot rot his ordered life. The clock chimed. Noon sliced the day apart. Eveline carried linens upstairs, but her gaze kept returning to the basement door. Every second dragged her closer to nightfall. when she would return to the coffin that refused to rest. Later, as dusk poured bruised colours across the cemetery sky, Alistair confronted her in the hallway. His voice held the weight of granite. "You look pale," he said. "Do not go near that man tonight." She tried to walk past him. His fingers tightened around her wrist like a cold clamp. "He is dangerous." "Thomas was kind," she snapped, forgetting fear for a heartbeat. Alistair flinched at the name. His grip tightened. His voice dropped into a guttural near growl. "That creature is not Thomas. He's a mistake that never should have crawled back here." Her heart thundered. "How do you know his name if he was unidentified?" Silence. A terrible silence that answered everything. Alistair knew more than he ever told her. He let go. She fled. Upstairs, door locked, Eveline pressed her forehead against the glass. She watched her husband outside, pacing the graveyard like a watchdog guarding bones. Her chest ached with longing and dread. Night swelled like a secret about to burst. Midnight arrived. Breezes hissed through the chimney like dead tongues whispering. Eveline crept downstairs, candle trembling in her grip. The morgue smelled sharper now, metallic, awake. The cold room lock looked almost melted. Something too strong or too determined had damaged it. Her pulse raced as she turned the key. The door creaked open. Frost swept over her skin. The coffin sat open, empty. Sheets dripped with thawed ice. The air quivered with warmth, as if someone breathing recently passed by. Footprints, wet, leading deeper into the morgue's shadowed hall. Eveline followed them, heart pounding mercy pleas. The footprints paused near the embalming table. A drop of red glittered on metal, fresh, impossible. She pressed forward. Her candlelight flickered over a figure standing in the corner, shoulders broad, hair black as smoke, skin still pale, but trembling with life's memory. Thomas, he turned slowly. His eyes opened like tomb doors. They glowed with love stretched thin by death. "Eveline," he breathed, voice stitched from suffering and devotion. "I came back. I never meant to leave you." Her knees nearly collapsed. She rushed toward him, hands reaching, soul reaching. His fingers brushed hers. Cold, yet hope blazed like sunlight on a coffin lid. Eveline's lips parted. A sudden crash tore the air apart. Alistair burst into the room wielding his embalming knife. His face twisted with fear, fury, and heartbreak. "You cannot have her," he roared. Eveline leapt between them, screaming. The dead man growled. The living man raised steel. Love sharpened into danger. The morgue, once quiet, braced for violence. What truth did Alistair bury that returned to haunt him? The dead have chosen a side. Like this story, share it with anyone who loves dark romance and subscribe for more chilling chapters. The body that wouldn't stay still. Love can resurrect a man. Jealousy can kill again. Alistair's knife caught the candlelight as his chest rose and fell like a bellows pulled from the fire. Eveline's scream sliced through the morgue, jolting Thomas into motion. The dead do not need breath to move. They move for reasons deeper than lungs. Thomas stepped forward, face twisted with pain, both ancient and new. "Stay back," Alistair warned, voice cracking against the cold walls. "You shouldn't be here. You were supposed to rot in the river like the lie you were." Eveline stared at her husband, confused horror tightening her throat. "What lie?" Alistair's gaze shuddered between Eveline and the corpseman, who stood because love had made the mistake of remembering. "He was never a good man," Alistair rasped. "He used you. He abandoned you." Thomas's voice rolled out like thunder buried under earth. "I was taken. I never left her." Eveline's heartbeat stuttered. "Taken, not gone. Stolen." Her candle flickered wildly as she turned toward Thomas. His empty chest did not rise, yet his eyes spoke every word he could no longer breathe. Alistair lunged, steel flashing. Thomas caught him by the wrist, dead fingers clamped with the grip of a coffin nail hammered home. Alistair screamed as the knife clattered to the ground, skidding across the tiles like a silver warning. "You don't deserve her," Alistair spat, face twisted with grief he didn't understand how to name. "You never did." "And you think you do?" Thomas snarled back. "You kept her trapped. You locked away her happiness just to keep her by your side. Eveline's trembling hand rose, as if she could stop the war between death and despair. Her voice quivered like a crypt door in a storm. Please, let me understand. Alistair, what happened to Thomas? Alistair's lip quivered. His tears surprised even him. I found his body at the river, he murmured. I knew who he was. I knew what losing him would do to you. His eyes shimmered with terrible truth. So I never told you. I thought if he was gone forever, you would learn to love me. Silence expanded, thick as burial soil. Eveline's heart broke twice at once. Once for the man who died still loving her. Once for the man who loved her in silence so cruelly, he thought the lie was kindness. Thomas released Alistair's wrist, but pain glinted in his dead eyes. He stepped back, swaying, as if every moment standing upright was a battle against gravity and fate. Death clung to him like a jealous lover. Eveline rushed to him, touching his cheek again. This time it was warmer, a faint pulse of something that shouldn't exist, Thomas whispered, voice frayed like a coffin lining. You are the reason I returned. His hand found hers. Alistair grabbed the knife again. Desperation twisting him into something monstrous. If I lose her, I lose everything. Thomas shielded Eveline with his body, bloodless though it was. The knife struck a sickening sound. A gasp from Eveline, a groan of something beyond human from Thomas. Moonlight bled into the morgue as the candle died. Thomas stood tall. The knife's blade had sunk into his heart. It didn't matter. His chest had no life to steal. He wrenched the knife free and dropped it at Alistair's feet. The Undertaker fell to his knees, terror hollowing him. Thomas's voice turned heavy with judgment no court could appeal. You killed my life once. You won't take it again. Eveline's hands clutched Thomas tightly. Dead or alive didn't matter. Love breathed through him anyway. Fear swallowed Alistair whole. He fled the room like a sinner who finally met his punishment. The morgue fell still again, yet nothing inside it was resting. Thomas turned toward Eveline, eyes filled with longing and dread. This place is not safe for us. The dead are watching. They know love cheated them tonight. He stepped closer, forehead against hers. If you want me to stay, you must choose me, even if it means joining me in the dark. Her breath caught like a trapped soul. Love had resurrected him. Love might bury her. The decision would define life and death. Can Eveline choose a man who has no heartbeat left? The grave has many ways to claim a bride. Like this chapter, share the mystery and subscribe before the morgue door closes. The Undertaker's terrible discovery. The dead returned for love. The living returned for revenge. Someone must be buried before sunrise. Alistair staggered across the graveyard, his boots sinking into damp earth. The moon glared down like a judge who already knew the verdict. His breath shook as if ghosts chased it from his lungs. He believed he could bury the truth forever. He believed he could craft happiness from grief. He believed Eveline would eventually forget Thomas. Now the truth crawled behind him, refusing the peace of the grave. Inside the morgue, Eveline held Thomas upright, afraid he might collapse again. His voice rasped like wind through a mausoleum. I feel the cold calling. I cannot stay long. Eveline grabbed his hand tightly. Then we leave tonight. We escape this cursed place. Thomas tried to smile. Even death trembled at that smile. I would follow you anywhere, even through eternity. Eveline pressed her forehead to his chest. It did not rise with breath. It felt like marble warmed by stolen life. The door upstairs slammed. Heavy footsteps stormed down the stairs. Alistair returned with something clenched in his fist, a small glass vial, thick dark liquid inside. He held it like a killing prayer. I tried to save you, he groaned, voice cracked by heartbreak. I tried to save us. Eveline stepped back, shielding Thomas with her body. Stop this. You cannot poison what is already dead. This isn't poison, Alistair breathed, eyes fevered. It's the formula that brought him back. Eveline's shock nearly knocked her over. Alistair, the quiet Undertaker. A man who stitched flesh and secrets. You revived him, she whispered. Alistair nodded, tears streaking his face. I wanted to make you happy, even if your heart belonged to another. I planned to show you his body, let you say goodbye properly." His voice fractured into despair. "I never meant for him to wake." "Something went wrong," Thomas growled. "You had no right to use me as your experiment." Alistair raised the vial higher. "This can fix the mistake. One drop, and he returns to the grave permanently. I'll bury him deep, where even love cannot find him." Thomas stepped forward. Eveline seized his arm. "Don't, he's desperate." Alistair's sob turned mad. "If I can't have you, no one will." He hurled the vial at Thomas. Glass shattered. Black fluid splashed across cold skin. The morgue lights flickered wildly. Thomas gasped a sound that wasn't human, a howl of death clawing back its claim. His body convulsed. Veins darkened like ink spreading beneath ice. His knees hit the ground. Eveline screamed, clutching him. "No. Thomas, stay with me." His fingers twitched, reaching for her cheek. "Don't let go." Eveline stared at Alistair with a fury colder than a tomb. "You murdered him once. Now you're killing him again." Alistair backed away, horror twisting his features. "I only wanted you to love me." Eveline stood, tears blazing into wrath. "You never loved me. You loved owning me." Behind her, Thomas shuddered and rose again, slower this time. Something darker had awakened inside him. Death surged through his muscles with purpose, not longing. He didn't look at Alistair like a rival anymore. He looked at him like a meal. Alistair scrambled toward the stairs. "Stay away from me, both of you!" He fled into the graveyard, tripping over tombstones. Thomas followed, not walking, not running, gliding, as if his feet no longer needed the permission of earth. Eveline stood, paralyzed, torn between terror and devotion. The night roared with wind and something primal. She chased after them into the cemetery, knowing love sometimes demands a sacrifice. Alistair stumbled behind an angel statue, panting, knife shaking in his grip. Thomas emerged from the shadows. Each step snapped bone. Tore muscle, yet he never stopped. Love animated his corpse. Hate sharpened his hunger. Alistair whimpered, "Please, Eveline, help me." Eveline arrived just as Thomas seized Alistair by the throat. Dead fingers tightened, lifting the Undertaker off the ground. "Thomas!" Eveline cried. Thomas paused. His hollow eyes flickered, torn between vengeance and the woman who had pulled him from the void. "All I did," Alistair choked, "was for her." Thomas squeezed harder. Eveline reached for him, voice breaking. "If you do this, you'll lose me forever." Thomas's grip trembled. The dead felt something like doubt. Fog swallowed the graveyard whole. A single heartbeat, a living one, from... Eveline decided everything. One must die for the other to live. Who will Eveline choose beneath the moonlit graves? Like, share, and subscribe before the next corpse wakes up. The final burial of a forbidden love. The dead demanded her heart. The living begged for her mercy. Love would choose only one. Thomas held Alistair suspended above the tombstones, fingers locked around his throat. His dead eyes burned with a fury older than the grave. Alistair's boots dangled, scraping against weathered stone angels, desperate for purchase. Eveline felt her soul tear in two. Her voice sliced through the storm. "Thomas, listen to me." He turned, face twisted by pain carved into eternity. Rains streaked his pallid skin like the world was already mourning. "You came back for love," Eveline whispered. "Not for blood," Alistair croaked, barely conscious. "Eveline, please." Thomas's grip loosened for a heartbeat, then tightened again with vengeance. "He stole my life," Thomas snarled, voice echoing like a coffin lid slamming shut. "He stole you." Eveline stepped forward, palms against Thomas's ice-cold chest. Her heartbeat thudded against his stillness. "You never lost me," she said. "Not even when I thought you were gone." Thunder roared. The graveyard shivered. Thomas stared at her, the rage fading from his expression. For a moment, he looked like the man who once spun her in the rain. Then the vial's black formula surged through him again. His eyes went feral. His jaw clenched unnaturally. The dead remembered their hunger. "Thomas!" Eveline breathed in terror. He threw Alistair to the ground with a brutal thud. The Undertaker sprawled across the wet grass, gasping, scrambling backward like a frightened animal. Thomas turned toward Eveline. A predator scenting a final desire. Her Eveline ran. Gravestones blurred as she rushed toward the morgue, heart hammering against ribs that suddenly felt too weak to contain it. She stumbled inside, slamming the door, fumbling for the lock. The hinges rattled. A fist pounded against the wood. Eveline. His voice slithered through the cracks, dripping with longing rotten into hunger. She backed away, tears streaming, breath shaking. Her eyes darted to the shelves of tools, the embalming instruments gleaming like silent judges. She grabbed a small vial, its liquid glowing faintly blue, Alistair's other formula. The antidote. Footsteps dragged closer. Thomas forced the door open. Wood splintering, his silhouette loomed in the candlelight. Her love, her nightmare, her choice. He reached for her. Eveline pressed the vial to his lips. "Come back to me," she whispered. Her hands forced the liquid into his mouth before he could resist. He staggered, choking, falling into her arms. His weight dragged them both to the floor. The morgue fell still. Thomas's breathing, there was breathing, returned in soft, fragile breaths. His eyes fluttered open, alive again. Truly alive, Eveline sobbed in relief, but life returned with a cruel price. Thomas exhaled a final, gentle whisper. His heartbeat thudded once, then stopped. His eyes closed peacefully, this time by choice. Death claimed him without violence. Love had brought him back, only long enough to say goodbye. Eveline's wail cracked the silence. Alistair limped into the doorway, bloodied, shaken, unable to speak. He watched Eveline cradle the man who would always own her heart. She kissed Thomas's cold forehead. "No one will separate us again." She lifted a knife from the embalming table, turned it toward her own heart. Alistair screamed too late. The blade slid in smooth as a vow. Eveline collapsed atop Thomas, lips still curved into a final smile. Two lovers reunited, beneath the morgue forever. Alistair fell to his knees, broken, rocking back and forth as reality swallowed him. He buried them together in a single coffin. Two names carved beneath one date, Thomas and Eveline. Together in death, 1893. Since then, locals swear the cemetery gates creak open at night. A woman's laughter drifts among the stones. Footsteps echo that never touch the ground. Love lives there still. Love that refused to stay buried. If you want a bonus epilogue of the haunting that followed, hit like, share this mystery around, and subscribe for more chilling love stories from the grave. Comment epilogue if you dare to see what Grimchester hides after midnight.